So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Joe Kicinski from Edward Jones to speak about the entrepreneurial equation. Take it from here, Joe.
Great. Well, thanks everybody for being here today. I really appreciate you guys taking some time to listen to what I have to say. Hopefully you can find some value out of this. For those of you who don't know me, I am a financial advisor with Edward Jones, as Lori mentioned. I really love helping individuals and small business owners organize, build, protect, and then ultimately distribute their wealth. The entrepreneurial equation is going to go over some of that and some of the things that you may not be thinking about as an entrepreneur, especially if you're just starting out. As you grow, things are going to change, as we're going to explain. So let's get started. I will hold all questions till the end if you don't mind, and then certainly have time to ask questions and go over everything. So we're all entrepreneurs to some degree or another. And there are some very common problems we all encounter, right? We all have limited time between the business, the family, things we want to do professionally and personally. There's financial pressures, because let's face it, as an entrepreneur, if you don't make the bacon, it's not getting cooked, right? Employees, both headaches with personalities, work ethic, finding employees right now, and then tax issues, right? There's always, death and taxes, the two things that have never changed and have been the same for as long as governments have been around. When we talk about the entrepreneurial equation, what we're really looking for is the best mix of operational excellence, being known as the person in your field that everybody wants to see because of how well you work. Business excellence and personal financial excellence. Nobody wants to be an entrepreneur and have all this business coming in and out, but really not being able to take any of it home. To achieve this equation, I highly recommend engaging a team of professionals. This should really include a CPA, an attorney, and a financial advisor. I would go a step or two further even and say that all three of these people should be around a table, whether it's via Zoom or in person, at some point with you at the same time. They should all be communicating. So if you have a CPA, an attorney, and a financial advisor, and they've never all talked together, please set that date, take them out to lunch, have them take you out to lunch, and set that up. Any of the problems we're going to encounter or talk about, we're going to use our 5-step process, and you can really apply this anywhere in life. So you really want to start, of course, figuring out where you're at today, taking stock of where you are, right? Really taking of hard assets and liquid assets and figuring where you're at today. The next step is my favorite step. You get to dream a little bit. Where do I want to be, right? Whether that's in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and I do recommend having those goalposts out there for yourself. The third one's not as fun. Can I get there? If your goal is to live on Lake Como with George Clooney in a week and you have nothing saved, that's not a realistic goal. So we need to maybe take a step back there and put some realistic goalposts out there for you as well. How do I get there? That's where myself and your team of professionals are going to sit down and put this plan together. And also probably maybe the most important part is number 5. How can I stay on track? This step we actually use periodically. So with my clients, we meet at least once a year is the minimum I require. Most of my professionals prefer at least every year or quarterly, and sitting down and going, okay, we've got our plan. Are we on track? Do we need to adjust? If your plan isn't a living, breathing plan, you need a new plan. So as a business owner, some of these goals we want to look at, of course, are building and developing your business, creating value outside of your business, a very important step. As a small business owner, sometimes we get those blinders on and we go, it's all about my business. It's all about my business. Well, value outside of your business is in 2 ways, financially and personally. You need to have a personal life. And the last step, of course, is preserving your business, whether you're preserving it to pass on to a next generation, or you're preserving it to sell at some point. When we talk about some of the other solutions, we talked earlier about building a team of professionals. Some of the solutions that you may be looking for: payroll, credit cards, loans, margin loan. Which way is the best way to do that kind of stuff? This is where, again, I'd reach back out to that team of professionals. More than likely, one, if not all of them, are going to know somebody in the business that they already know, like, and trust, and can help, who may be already helping some of their own current clients and would love to have you as a client as well. One of the reasons we're going to build our business, and some of the most important parts about this, is attracting and retaining key employees with the help of benefits and retirement planning. If you are a sole proprietor, surprise, surprise, you're that key employee, right? That you make the bacon and you clean up the floors and sell everything as well. If you have employees, think for a few minutes here and identify the key person in your business. Believe it or not, a large part of the workforce is replaceable, but there are a few members in your business that are almost irreplaceable. Your business would suffer significantly if they left, if something happened to them. So just think here in the back of your mind, who is my key employee? As a small business owner, I always think it's very prudent to plan for Murphy's Law. If you don't know Murphy's Law, anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So planning for those and having some things in place. We briefly touched about creating value outside of your business. You want to make sure your business is a viable way to provide long-term income for your family. As an investor, if you do any sort of investing, you probably don't have your entire wealth in one stock or one mutual fund. You've diversified it. It's the same with your business. You should really be looking to diversify your business strategy as well. Why a retirement strategy? Why should we be looking at this? Well, again, first, it's going to be a great way to attract and retain quality employees. When employees feel that they get a benefit out of their hard work, they're going to stay around much longer and work harder for you. Again, to diversify your assets and retirement income. If something goes wrong with your business and it's not able to be sold for the amount you need to, that's a serious problem. Control your business saving, again, outside the business. And probably one of the more important ones that people overlook is meeting your tax goals with the help of possible tax advantages. We all know we get kind of hit from both ends of the government with taxes as a small business owner. One of the great ways is to tax defer that and take some of that and kick it down the road a little bit to where maybe you're not taxed at such a high bracket. So when we think about retirement, what is a retirement goal? You know, is it retiring on Lake Como with Lake George Clooney, like I said? Is it maybe buying a rental property or a beach or a mountain house? Or is it just doting on the grandkids at every turn that you can? So think about that. Do you have a retirement goal? Some people don't. Their goal is to work until they die. Do you have employees, right? So if not, that's fine. But if you do you plan to contribute to the retirement? My most important question here that you need to really think about as a small business owner or an entrepreneur is, are you willing to give more to your employees if it's going to benefit you? Think about that for a little bit. Some of the options will make sense here as I continue. And do you understand the cost of your plans? When I actively look and seek out retirement plans and talking with people, that's one of the first questions I ask is, how do you pay for your plan? If you don't know that answer, definitely need to take a look. There's a number of different ways and they have different pros and cons. So definitely a thing to think of. So as we're going through this, let's start with no employees. They're simple, they're easy. We'll get this out of the way. So if you have no employees, what are some of your options? First is what they call a SEP IRA. It's a great for a sole proprietor or a partnership. There is technically no limit, but with a SEP IRA, you have to give a matching contribution to everybody that's employed at the company. So again, great if you have one or two partners or maybe a spouse, but maybe not the best idea. An owner only 401k, actually very similar. Now we can actually do catch-up contributions just like a traditional 401k, and you're able to put a little bit more money into an owner-only 401k. You're going to top out right around $58,000 a year before your catch-up benefit. So some cool things you can do there as well. The most lucrative one to do if you have the income is what they call a defined benefit plan. These work really well if you're older than 45, earn more than $100,000, and can contribute at least for 3 years. These plans actually are the highest contribution levels, and we can get over $100,000 a year into these. So some really cool things you can do there. Let's get a little more complicated. We're going to move on to if you have employees. So now we have the problem where we're going to have to give them something to get these tax benefits. So a simple IRA is the most easy, right? That's a savings incentive match plan for employees. You top out at 13.5 plus the match from the company, and you have to give your employees something. There's different ways to do it, but again, you have to give them something. We all know what a 401k is. We've had one. Sometimes they match, sometimes they don't. The downside of the 401k is if you have a highly compensated owner or sales team, often they can't contribute to the 401k. There's all sorts of tests and rules that are put on 401ks. The way around that is a safe harbor aspect. With the safe harbor, we guarantee a certain level of match to those employees. But now, as a highly compensated individual, you're able to contribute, which is awesome. And my favorite one here is custom plans. This is where we can pair a safe harbor or a 401k with a profit sharing plan or a defined benefit plan. Again, this is where we really talk about, would you give more to your employees if it benefited you? Being able to defer upwards of $50,000, $60,000 a year for yourself, giving your employees a great match or a profit share, which again endears them to you and your company and makes them feel more appreciated. So I would say these are the more standard ways we talk about retirement plans for the companies. One of the things you need to understand is that they are like health and car insurance. You're supposed to shop your car insurance every few years. If you have a plan in place, you need to have it benchmarked. That's where a professional such as myself comes out and shops it for you. Is there a better way? Is there a way to cut expenses, add benefits, a whole host of things we can do? The other aspect of your business is insurance. It's a great way to help protect against Murphy's Law. So I'm going to go through a couple scenarios here that may have some personal thoughts of your own business. We're going to go through this woman, Sue. Sue's an owner. She does flower arrangements. She does 300 weddings a year. That's awesome. She's successful, but a big part of her business is her employee, Jenny. Jenny is the chief floral designer. She manages the business. She manages the employees. And realistically, the reason people pick this business is because of Jenny. She's a big part. So what happens to Jenny when one day while working around the house, Jenny falls off a ladder, right? She breaks her back. She's okay, but she breaks her back. The downside for Jenny is she's going to have at least 6 months out. And then when she does return, it's going to be that slow pace. Well, we want to make sure Jenny's taken care of. Don't get me wrong. But what happens to Sue, the business owner? Are people really still going to pick her business if Jenny isn't there? Maybe, maybe not. So one of the ways we can help with that is what we call key person disability insurance. It's going to help the owner, Sue, maintain income while Jenny's recovering. It allows her to really buy some time without losing money. Now let's take a step a little more morbid here. What happens if Jenny died from that ladder fall? How long is it going to take for Sue to find somebody, train them, get them up to that level, and replace the reputation? It's going to take a while. This is where we look at key person life insurance. Again, a great way for the owner, Sue, to cover loss of income until Jenny can be replaced. The last thing I'll go over here, on a bright note, is Jenny is a lucrative employee. She brings a lot of business in for Sue. What happens if she's out getting coffee and one of her competitors comes up and offers her a big raise to come over? Realistically, it's her reputation. She may have a little bit of an ego and decide, you know what, I'm really the one making this business. I'm going to go where there's more money. One of the best things you can do is put handcuffs on your employees. Not literally, but what we like to call golden handcuffs. Golden handcuffs are what we call deferred compensation. This is a way where you set up when your employee hits a certain milestone that you set up and predetermined, that they get a large compensation. It has to be big enough that it means something to that employee, maybe $50,000 or $100,000 bonus at some point. And these are also often funded with life insurance. But really, it gives Jenny a real reason to think twice before jumping ship and really ruining Sue's business. So again, those golden handcuffs are the best kind of handcuffs there are. Let's move on here to another example. I've got Joe and Rick, and not me, another Joe, but they're really successful entrepreneurs. They've sat down and they've grown their business from a regional small trucking company to really a national level in a decade, which is quite the accomplishment to really expand at that level. The sad news is last week, Joe had a heart attack and died. So now Rick is left with new owners, right? They're a partnership. So now you have either Joe's wife or one of his kids is the new partner, and neither of them have been involved in the business. If that doesn't sound like a nightmare scenario to you, it really is. They may come in and demand that they get their half of the business now, really destroying the business in its entirety. It's a real problem. So one of the ways to take care of this is what we call a buy-sell agreement. It really alleviates the question of who's going to own the business on the death of the partner. And it also is a great way to provide liquidity to the family and the spouse of the deceased. How this works is they take life insurance on each other. And basically, if one of them dies, the amount is there for the family. We don't have new business partners, and the family gets the money they deserve right away. A lot of people that I talk to have these, but haven't updated them again in a number of years. If your business has grown from $1 million business to a $5 million business, don't you think your family deserves another $2 to $5 million? Again, as that grows, that's that step 5, sitting down annually at least and reevaluating your plan, making sure that we're going to take care of you and your family. Now let's be a little more positive here. Let's say Joe didn't die, but he's going to be out a while. This is where we're going to talk about disability insurance. Again, the same thing. It's going to help Joe and the business preserve themselves, their family, replace income. It's really a great thing to have. Okay. We're going to go through one more example here, and then we'll wrap up. Jim owns an accounting firm. He's successful. He's got a few kids. He's looking to retire here in the near future. And one of the ways he's decided to really invest his money is in what they call a LIRP, a life insurance retirement plan. The reason he chose that is it's well suited for Jim because of his high income, and it excludes him from, let me take a step back here. When you have high income, you can't put money into a Roth. So because he's successful, this is a way for him to put money away tax deferred and potentially tax free in retirement. It also provides long-term accumulation and is a great way to talk about estate planning. So again, this is going to really help him. Tax benefits, if you don't know, life insurance, if it's passed and after a death, it passes tax free. And you can also borrow against it on a couple different levels. And again, that's not counted as income. So again, tax free. This is also a great way for him to help with his estate planning on multiple levels. He does have one of his children that is part of the firm. The downside of that is if he leaves his firm to his child upon his death, what about the other 2 kids? This is a great way for him to maybe give equal gifts, set a certain amount of that life insurance aside for his kids when he passes. And as the other child gets the business, nobody feels slighted and the family isn't destroyed over money, which is always the saddest thing to see. Life insurance retirement plans are also a great way if you may have a business where you may not want to give to your employees for any reason. It's a great way to save on your own and kind of bypass a lot of those issues. So again, the entrepreneurial equation, it's going to help find the right equation based on needs and goals. And your equation is going to change. I don't want to put may there, it is going to change. And your needs are going to change, right? It's going to change with COVID. We've seen that very recently. Keys to success, you need a strong team, right? You need people around you. You never want to be the smartest person in the room. You want to listen to your business and personal needs. You want to discuss tools and how they work together, and you want to help take advantage of your options. The right equation for your business is going to help you save time. It's going to help you attract and retain key employees, and it's preserve the business for you and your heirs. So before I get to questions and answers, everything that we've talked about today is something I can provide you. I like to talk about the fact that if a person only has a hammer, everything looks like a nail to them. I'm the gentleman that has the full tool belt. And the few things that I don't do, I have a great team of referral partners who are going to help me get that taken care of for you. So again, I'm Joe Kicinski. I work for Edward Jones. My office is here in Westchester. I'm always happy to grab a cup of coffee and give you a complimentary second opinion. So any questions? I'm going to stop sharing just so I can see everybody, if that's okay. Any questions?
It is
Great.
very good.
Yeah, great job, Joe.
Thank you.
Very informative.
You guys have heard enough out of me between Connexton yesterday and today here. Oh, sorry, Bill, go ahead.
Yeah, Joe. So can a one-person business have key person life insurance?
You can't take it out upon yourself in that regards. What we would do is do a LIRP though, or just standard life insurance. Because again, if you are your only business, there's nobody to pay on that business. There's a way to talk about spouses and a few other options there. But realistically, unless you're planning to sell the business and it's something physical, at that point, generally, you're going to have employees or a key person to sell the business to.
So you talk about spouses. So if you don't have spouses, but you have children, and you decide you want to leave the business to them, but leave them with money to run the business.
Mhm.
How does that happen? You designate, how does that work?
So you would designate your son as the beneficiary of that insurance. In the event of your death, that money would go for him to the event of running the business.
And if there's two, you can divide.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. In that case, we may not use key life insurance. We may just use generic life insurance or a life insurance retirement plan for those purposes.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Oh, you just gave a really good commercial for why you should join a chamber too, because you really do need a good team especially if you're in those industries to support your clients. So thank you for that. But did you see anything? I will share it, Rajesh, for sure. Was there any any of your clients or clients that you know of during COVID, were they able to take advantage of some of that?
I'm sorry, you cut in and out there for a second, Lori.
I'm sorry. During COVID, did any of your clients or anybody have issues that that they had that kind of insurance, like interruption, and did the insurance companies pay for that?
I don't generally deal with business interruption. I did have a client who, unfortunately, one of his key employees passed and he didn't have that insurance. So that was a big detriment to his business. So that's one of the reasons why when I talk to small business owners, I really try to give them the full gambit, at least let them know about it, whether it's right for them at this point or not. But it's one of those things when I sat with the gentleman, I thankfully had put in my notes, I talked about, who's key in his business. And so I felt that it wasn't my fault that I didn't tell him about it. But it is one of those things where absolutely, I did have a client, unfortunately, he wasn't insured for it, but his main employee passed and it took him about 8 to 12 months to get back to where he was even before the COVID mess. So, yeah.
Have you had more people come to you, or does anybody here have more people come to you since COVID that they realize, wow, shit happens more than normal?
Yeah.
That doing things and
The two biggest things we saw was life insurance business skyrocketed. We had one dip week, and that was the week everything shut down, that March 16th week of hell, and then after that, we just went right back to our normal numbers. We were already set up virtually, but that was the two biggest things we saw. We don't do much life insurance at all, but having people that are in the business, I got a couple calls like, do you want to do life insurance? Like, no, but I understand your pain. And then, like I said, we recruited, we had new agents writing record numbers. I mean, people were worried, and they were like, wait a minute, what if I die? Or like, what if I get sick? To the two things. And then to what Joe just said, oh my gosh, I better start thinking about my future here.
I've definitely had an influx in life insurance business, and even just general people sitting down in general and saying, what happened if I died today? And outside of the insurance, what my kids, I talk with every one of my clients about a will. It's one of the first things we talk about. I don't do wills. I don't write it. I work with an attorney who does that. And pre-COVID, it was almost a struggle. You'd follow up with them 6-8 months later. Hey, did you get that will done? Now it's like, hey, we need a will in case something happens. And it's like, it's done.
Yeah, that was the estate attorneys. That was the other one. I know a couple guys that work at Fox Rothschild, and they were just slammed. I mean, just beyond busy. So that's, as you look at it, that is some positives that came from COVID, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
I know in my industry, we saw a huge uptick in lines of credit, personal, business, and home equity. And I think same thing, people before the pandemic probably didn't realize how quickly something like that could happen and could change things. So it's been, at the onset, and it slowed down a little bit as we progressed, but it's been a very popular product.
Does anybody else have any questions?
Joe, I have a question for you. It's funny, I'm familiar with the advantages of whole life policies, but I'd never heard the term LERP before. Could you expand a little bit or just talk a little bit more, I guess, about
So
that?
at the 10,000 foot level, you buy a piece of life insurance, whether it's a $250,000, $500,000 policy. There's a whole bunch of calculations we use to figure out what's the appropriate amount based on how much you want to put in there. And then the ability is that instead of it just being a flat amount, as you put money and actually overfund the contract, it develops cash value that a loan can be taken out against it, as well as the initial principal taken out of it. I just did one of these with a great example. A good friend of mine who's a client is 30. So his life insurance is very cheap. We took out a 400,000 on him and a 600,000 on his wife because that's the appropriate amount they needed. The contract cost them about $2,500 a year. Their goal is to put about $6,000 a year in it. So there's a whole bunch of calculations we did. And basically, he's going to have two options when he retires. One is to start taking tax-free income loans against it. So another way for him to get a Roth without having a Roth because he is over those limits. Or if we get to that point where he doesn't need the money, he's got a big taxable back from his 401k and the pension, and his wife's military, so there's a pension there. The great thing about life insurance is it passes tax-free to that next generation. So now we have a way with stretch IRAs gone. You used to be able to stretch an IRA over generations. This is a way to pass that wealth down to the next generation tax-free. So depending upon when he dies in that thing, it could be multiple millions of dollars between the policies that now is going to go to that next generation tax-free, and he can spend all his taxable money in retirement. So it really gives a small business owner some flexibility and some options to do. You can't overfund them too much. It becomes what they call a MEC, a modified endowed contract, where you put too much into it at some point and then it loses some of those value. So it's a very specific calculation we do when we sit down with people. We leave a little fluff. One of the cool things about it is actually some of the things that Biden did end of last year, early this year, actually have made that a better option for some small business owners. Basically, to not hit that MEC limit, they almost doubled the amount. So if you wanted to put X amount of dollars in, you used to have to buy $1 million policy. Now you only have to buy a $500,000 policy for that same level of benefit. So there's some great benefits out there because of it. For somebody who is already maxing their IRAs, already maxing their 401ks, or doesn't have the ability to put a Roth money aside, it's a phenomenal estate planning / wealth accumulation option. Hopefully that answered the question for you, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Joe.
Yeah.
Very cool. Does anybody else have anything or anything?
Doesn't anybody wear a tie anymore?
Ken, I prefer to not wear a jacket or a button down either. I prefer a polo.
All
I
right.
dress
Very
up
handsome,
for
Ken.
you.
Yeah. I had a funeral to go to a couple weeks ago and a wedding back-to-back weeks. That's probably the
Okay.
most I've worn a suit in years.
So I know that I want to thank you, Joe, number one, but Bruce, I know you're going to be doing this next week, and I just thought maybe you would want to share, not next week, next month, and I thought maybe you would want to share what your program is going to be about to this group as well.
Yeah, sure. Thanks. So next month's Lunch and Learn, September 9th, it's going to be an engaging parody on the classic conflict between the sales department and the marketing department. So I'm calling it Cage Match, Sales versus Marketing. And so I'll be hosting it. And my cage competitor, my cage fighter, will be Jim Stewart of your local network. So he and I are going to go at it. Look to have you attend, and we'll have some fun at it, fun with it. So
Yeah, that's
September
awesome.
9th, Lunch and Learn.
Thank you, Bruce. And that's what, I mean, I always think of what I love about this presentation, besides the entrepreneurial piece about it, Joe, is that there is, I think, for lack of a better word, my ignorance, I always think of life insurance as separate from investment strategies, separate from going to the bank and having a banker, you know what I mean? So it really is one whole thing, I think, just not just for business owners, but for everybody. So it's really good to put that all together in one place.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that all they can sell is life insurance. And so that's what they use for everything. There's some people that only have access to sell mutual funds. So that's all they do for everything. Again, really having all the tools in your tool belt really allows me to select what's appropriate for the client and put a complementary suite together for them. One last thing. Oh, go ahead, Bill.
You didn't mention HSAs as far as I can remember.
Unfortunately, I'm not allowed to do an HSA. It is something that is definitely part of your strategy for retirement. You should be funding as much of that as possible as you can, because it is another tax deferred way to save money. At the same point, you can invest that in certain mutual funds as long as the company allows for it. And it comes out triple tax free. So you're not paying taxes when it goes in, you're not paying taxes when it comes out or on the growth, as long as it's spent within its parameters. So one of the things we will talk about, unfortunately, it's not just something I handle personally, it's something I would refer out at that point would be an HSA. But they are very great ways. I encourage, even like I have access to an HSA now. I'm funding that as much as I can afford to, because healthcare costs are not going down, they're going up. So it's another way to kind of hide some money from the government legally and spend it on you and where it matters most is your family.
Yeah, cool. And then kind of for Harry there, not all insurance or health insurance will allow you to use your HSA money. So just gotta be careful of that too, I guess.
Yeah, they're getting less and less.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Since this is recorded, the last thing I'll say is if you're watching this recording and you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on the chamber website. If you have a small business owner that you know that should be thinking about this stuff, please forward it on to them. I'd be happy to talk to them as well. I am licensed in like 14 different states. Happy to add another state or two if somebody lives in a state that I'm not licensed in. So yeah, thanks. Hopefully I'll see some of you guys or some of you young professionals from your business Tuesday at the Mixer at Ashbridge on Tuesday at 5 o'clock.
What's the age requirement on that?
Under 40, I saw that you registered.
Oh,
Yeah, I
did.
just missed it. Damn it.
I act like I'm like 12 though.
I know. And Rajesh, we will, this will be on the weekly email on Monday, and I'll follow up with everybody, the actual presentation. I'm sure Joe can provide the actual slides too, if you don't want to sit through the hour. Or no, you can.
Thank you.
Can't send out the actual slides. I apologize, but you're welcome to view the presentation on video.
All right.
Yep, thank you.
Awesome. Does anybody else? So everybody has to be at, at Patty's on the 24th, at Bash in the Borough on the 29th, and 26th, not 29th. And back here on the 9th for our cage match, sales versus marketing. All right.
Excellent.
Guys, have a good rest of your day.
Everybody enjoy the day.
Yeah.
Thanks again, Joe. Great job.
Great job, Joe, as usual.
How do you want to say
Thank
on-
you.
Thanks again, Joe.
No problem. Happy to do it. Have a great weekend.